Why?
Well, first of all, de Gaulle hated the fact that Churchill and Truman had not given him the appropriate respect that he felt he deserved. One of the reasons that happened while I was there is that France withdrew from the military alliance. De Gaulle threw us out. We had to pack our bags and move the entire kit and caboodle from Paris to Brussels. And I was there at the time when it happened. But you cannot imagine what an international headquarters is like. It's like a wasp's nest. As I said, the Greeks and the Turks were snarling at each other all the time. The French were always angry at everybody.
Okay, so what are you saying, 15 copies?
15 copies were initiated. Copy went to the U.S., copy went to Italy, copy went to France, copy went to UK, and so on. 15 copies were out. One copy, I think the 14th or the 15th, came right there in the vault at Shock.
Okay.
Reading material for the controllers, the full colonels who ran the 24-hour-a-day war room.
So you weren't the only one that read it?
Oh, no, no, no. No, we had an American Air Force general by the name of Robert Lee. Robert Lee read the thing. Inside the war room, we were a select group. We all had the highest clearance possible. The enlisted men and the officers mingled closely. The enlisted men had, the senior enlisted men, most of us were top, E7s or E8s, and a couple of E9s. So we mingled closely, and it wasn't on a first-name basis. There was always respect for rank. But when you work in a war room like that, and you work closely together over the years, you get to know each other pretty well. General Lee's aide told me, he said, when the old man read that story, or read that report, the assessment, he told me that the general threw his hat across the desk and he says, do you know what the hell this means? Everything we've got, everything we've done, everything we've had, doesn't mean a damn thing. The conclusions of the study, after 3 years, concluded that they had been coming here for a very long time, that they apparently had some involvement in the origins of our species. Big shock to traditional people, particularly Christians and Muslims people. It was interesting is that apparently there was not a threat involved. If they were hostile or aggressive, they would have been over a long time ago. Now, what was their purpose? Well, the study was not able to conclude that. It said that the military committee will continue this research, which indicated to me that the study in some form had continued, that this document in '64 was simply an initial conclusion.
Okay.
But when they concluded that there were 4 different extraterrestrial groups involved, and one of them was totally human, looked just like us, that was a big shock to the old traditional mindset of the military. The admirals and the generals, you know, they couldn't deal with it. We formed, back in those days, what we called the Old Boys Network. And this network was made up of people like myself, enlisted and commissioned, of all services, Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, as I said, all ranks. There were others like me who were so engrossed by this and excited by it and what it meant. You hear a few of them coming out even today, those that are still alive, saying what I saw, what I learned, what I concluded, the reports I studied, the contacts that I knew happened. Some of them had contacts themselves.
Sure. Personal
Contacts with some of these guys.
Okay, so
Phil Corso was an example. You familiar with who he was?
Absolutely.
I knew Phil fairly well. He and I were speakers at several conferences together. And in Italy, I got to know him pretty well. Phil shared with me things that he had happen to him. Not just what he had seen, but he had personal contact with an alien at White Sands. He was in charge of the security of the range one time. And something came in, the radar picked it up. He hopped in his car, went out to see what the hell it was. There is a UFO sitting on the ground. There's a guy standing beside it. And Corso walks over to him and says, you know, what the hell are you, who are you, and where are you from, and why are you here? And this fellow says, I just came to talk. And Corso asked him, he says, well, are you with us or are you against us? Simple military type question, you know, are you with me or are you against me? Mm-hmm. And this guy says, neither. We're neither for you or are we against you. And he had a conversation with this guy that lasted over an hour. And the guy says, please turn off your radar. It disturbs my control or my guidance system, so I can leave. Corso went back to the shop, or back to the headquarters, turned off the radar, and away he went. So I came out in '91 at a conference in Tucson, Arizona.
All right.
The result was of monumental aggravation and frustration that the government had continued over all these years to lie to the people. Not only were they lying to the people, they were ruining lives to keep the lid on this subject. And I had enough of that.
Okay.
I had seen good friends of mine, guys who, they had said something to the wrong person at the wrong way at the wrong time, and they sent them to Iceland. You know?
They reassigned them?
They assigned them to Iceland without their families.
Ah.
A 3-year assignment in Iceland. That's like the Russians sending you to Siberia.
Okay.
We have places on the earth where we have military bases, and if you send you there, everybody says, bye. We'll probably never hear from you again. You know. As I told you, I think I shared with Bill, I was intimidated. I had phone calls on people who wouldn't identify themselves. Male voices saying, don't you think you've talked about this just about enough? Why don't the hell you time for you to shut up? Who's this? Never mind. Keep your damn mouth shut on this. Click. I had a number of those. I had a little house in Tucson in a cul-de-sac. I lived there. I bought it years ago. Bought it in 60-something. I'm sitting there one day, reading or whatever, and I hear a very distinctive sound. Mm-hmm. I knew a helicopter. I know the sound of a Huey because I'd been in Vietnam.
Okay.
And the Huey has a distinctive sound all of its own. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know, is it passing over? And it kept, and the damn thing was sitting over my house. So I go out the door into the driveway and I look up and there's this totally black Huey-type helicopter, not more than 100 feet above my house, violating FAA rules, totally violating the rules, but the damn thing was sitting up there and there was not a marking on it, not one mark on it. It was totally black, and that was a violation of FAA, you know. Now, these guys violate the law all the time. Mm-hmm. And I stood out there and I thought, who the hell are you? And I looked up and studied it, and there was this big, circular, glassy apparatus on the bottom of this thing. It was part of the aircraft. And I concluded later that it was probably one of those 360-degree windows. Mm-hmm. And there were probably guys sitting in there looking at me down through this glass. But it was black, totally black. The glass was black. The thing was sitting up there and just kind of like, you know, that